Welcome to the World of Warcraft Gameplay and Systems Deep Dive panel.
Hey everybody. Welcome to the World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth Systems Deep Dive. My name is Matt Goss. I am one of the designers on the World of Warcraft team. Today on stage I'm joined by two of my fellow designers, Jeremy Fiesel and Russ Peterson. So what we're going to run you through today, Russ is going to run you through the heart of Azeroth and the effects that it has on armor that you're going to find in Zandalar and Kul Tiras. Then I'll take us to the front lines of Warfronts, where we'll get to see how the big war is taking place on the homeland. Then I'll talk a little bit about some social features that we're adding that we haven't quite talked about at all yet. But first, helping us navigate the waters of island expeditions, Jeremy Fiesel.
All right, island expeditions, or as we've just been calling them, islands. This is a new piece of small group content in Battle for Azeroth. We weren't going to send you across the sea to find new allies without stopping every once in a while to do some good old-fashioned looting and plundering of uncharted lands. But before we start talking about island expeditions, or the heart of Azeroth, or even Warfronts, we should start by talking a little bit more about this substance Azerite. The assault from the Legion has grievously wounded our planet, and cracks are occurring all across her surface. She's hemorrhaging her lifeblood, and it looks like this sort of gold-blue substance that you see behind me. As it emerges, it crystallizes into these thrumming spires filled with power that reach towards the sky. There's incredible power inherent with the blood of Azeroth, which we're calling Azerite. But for the Alliance and the Horde, this is a little bit like being the first group to discover plutonium. While incredibly powerful, we're not entirely sure what all it can do. And some of those mysteries you'll be exploring in Battle for Azeroth. But what both sides do know is that it has the power to be incredibly destructive. And whichever faction has the most of this stuff in their coffers when Warfronts break out is definitely going to have the upper hand. Now, the gnomes and the goblins aren't just going to let this awesome new source of power show up without immediately developing some technology that will allow us to pinpoint where these hemorrhages are locating or showing up all across Azeroth. So they're going to give you some maps showing uncharted islands off in the Great Sea that are filled with Azerite. As luck would have it, we've just made friends with the two groups that have the most powerful navies in the world, the Kul Tirans and the Zandalari. So you're going to log in and head down to the docks of your brand new hub city of Boralis for the Alliance, and Zuldazar for the Horde, and there you'll be conscripted by the Alliance to head off on an adventure. You're going to take one of their fastest ships and try to gather as much of that Azerite as you can. Of course, once you arrive on the island, you won't find that it's necessarily undefended. This giant crab that we see here is not a friendly crab. The denizens of the island will fight hard for the Azerite that they've already collected, because really every creature is drawn to this magical substance, even though they don't quite know why. So that was a little bit of the story behind your island expedition. Let's get down into some of the details. Island expeditions are 3-player scenarios, and they're role agnostic. This is something that we want to really play with this time around. If you want to bring in 3 tanks or 3 healers, we definitely want to support that. And we've learned a lot about individual class-based gameplay and rare spawn gameplay and world quest gameplay throughout the last couple of expansions. All of that knowledge we're applying here to give you an awesome experience no matter what group you come in with. They're intended to take about 15 to 20 minutes, and being role agnostic, you'll also have a relatively rapid queue. That means that just about any time of the day, you can hop in, queue up, and knock one of these out and grab some Azerite. And last but not least, the major goal here, of course, is to obtain Azerite, to fill up the hull of your ship and leave victorious with Azerite for your faction, but also some for yourself. Gaining Azerite comes in a wide variety of different sources. You can find it on Azerite nodes or seams. Creatures have been collecting it and gathering it up into chests, baskets, and bags. Like I said, everything's kind of drawn to it a little bit, and they don't want to let it go. It has this inherent power. You will fight creatures infused with Azerite. You'll save quest givers who have been collecting Azerite. And of course, you'll be fighting powerful bosses and taking their huge hordes of Azerite. And also much, much more, which we're going to get into in a little bit. Really, one of the prevailing design philosophies behind island expeditions is something that we're calling dynamic replayability. And I could describe that in a whole bunch of words, but it's going to be way more fun if I show you with pictures. All right, so imagine you and your friends queue up for an island expedition, and you arrive on this sort of idyllic tropical landscape. It's nice, you know, looks kind of like what you would expect an island to look like. It's the middle of the day, it's a pretty day. And today, you find the island is inhabited by a couple of hosen sitting next to a chest filled with Azerite. To the left of them, you see a giant Azerite-encrusted starfish. Of course, you can pick up the starfish and fling it at any enemy to disorient them and let you do extra damage to them for a little while. There's a couple of ambient crabs wandering around on the shoreline, and in the back right there, you see a creepy-looking hosen shrine. If you click on that shrine, it will give you a powerful buff, but every shrine buff also comes with a detriment, and you can't remove it until its duration expires. So you have to be sure that you want to really opt in to that gameplay, that extra difficulty. In this particular case, this shrine makes you do extra damage, but reduces your armor. In the back left, you see a very large crab that we saw earlier, who is guarding a huge spire of Azerite. And as you can imagine, he's going to be one of the more powerful foes in the sort of scene that we created here. So what did we just craft? Really, what we've created is a puzzle. There is an optimal way to play through this scenario. So what do you think you would do? You would probably kill the hosen, you would take their chest, grab the starfish, maybe go to the shrine at that point, you would starfish the crab, which is a weird phrase to say, and then while he's disoriented, do a bunch of extra damage to him, maybe even killing him before he can hit you, so the debuff sort of portion of that shrine never even gets realized. And then you take his big chunk of Azerite. Super cool, right? We solved this puzzle, we tactically worked our way through the game, and we found the most efficient path through this particular chunk of the island. Now imagine that you and your friends finished this island, you did great, you were victorious, and you queue up again. The second time you come to the island, it looks like this. Okay, same island, a little bit different time of day, it's pretty, it's dusk. And this time, a Sarok rare spawn and their band of Sarok have taken over the camp, slain the hosen, taken their chest, and that particular rare spawn is worth a huge amount of Azerite. You'll notice that the starfish is now giant clams, of which there are 2. You can pick up one of those clams and fling it at an enemy to stun them. The shrine is in a different location, and it's a different shrine. And the crabs, rather, are a family of turtles now, in the very back right over there, who were crafted with some turtle eggs that you can click on to get an instantaneous heal. You can probably see where I'm going with this. Imagine that the third time that you queue up for the day, it is instead a dark and stormy night. Mogu necromancers have arrived on the back of powerful thundering cloud serpents, have taken over the entire island. All of the shrines are now cursed shrines. They do additional damage, but with a significant additional detriment. The Mogu have also opened up this portal that you see in the back right there to a Mogu Necrolord's crypt, 1,000 yards beneath the surface of Azeroth. And if you go walk into that portal, you will port down into that crypt, and one of the passages through it will be open for you to defeat the boss at the end and gain their Azerite. So what did we really just show you here? Every time you come to this space, the puzzle is different. The creatures are in different locations. The Azerite is in different quantities and different spots. There are additional gameplay elements scattered throughout the world, and it's always a little bit different. All of these things are what you might call procedurally generated on the island space, so that every time you come here, you will find different creatures in different organizations with different amounts of Azerite. You might find capture points that allow you to take over some long abandoned cannons on the side of a ship that give you a powerful extra ability on this particular island. You'll find chests and Azerite nodes of all kinds of different quantities scattered everywhere, but always in a different combination, and different quest givers, consumables, shrines. Every island has at least 4 start locations. Every time we make a cave, it can be a different cave of a huge number of different possible caves. Pirates can show up in the middle of the island on great giant ships that you can then board and go down into and take their Azerite. But we don't necessarily want to call this procedural generation. That harkens back to a world where maybe we would have a Hosen next to a Sarok, next to a Mogu, and it wouldn't tell a cohesive story. In all of those pictures we just showed you, really what we started with was telling a story, and then we generated the world afterwards. It's a little bit like going on an adventure and just filling in the blanks. We landed on a tropical island in the middle of the night, and it was inhabited by Mogu necromancers. We define what that story is for your island, and then we generate it for you in a way that always feels different. You're never sure where the next tactical location of Azerite is going to be located at. And that means that every time you come to this space, it's going to really get to that feeling of exploring uncharted lands and new territories that we want to get for the battle for Azeroth. However, something Ian mentioned earlier, both the gnomes and the goblins have developed the technology to pinpoint these major sources of Azerite. So shortly after you arrive on this island, so will the other faction. You'll be facing off against 3 champions of the other team who are going after all of the same resources you are, and they just might defeat one of those bosses or snag one of those chunks of Azerite right out from under your nose. This provides a real time pressure to make those tactical decisions and play that puzzle efficiently that we think adds the icing to the cake of this system. We also really want to play around with the concept of those faction champions. If you're the Alliance, you want to face off against a real group of horde that feel like fun characters from that faction. You might be facing off against this group, the Spirits of Vengeance, a group of Darkspear loyalists who are out for vengeance for Vol'jin. They have a Shadow Hunter, a Witch Doctor, and a Berserker, exactly as you would expect from a group of powerful trolls. For the Horde, you might be facing off against the Wolf Pack, a group of Worgen out for vengeance for Gen Greymane, who are really good at sniffing you out. I know, terrible. But you might be thinking to me, okay, I've been playing this game for like a decade at this point. If I fireball this big Magneron right here, I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to run right up to me, and he's going to punch me in the face. And then if I run really far away from him, he might run back to his spawn point. So you, game designer, I'm going to beat you at your own game, and I'm going to drag all of these NPCs off into a corner while the rest of my allies go and take over the island. That's an interesting problem. And spawning up a world where different resources can show up just about anywhere presents a lot of interesting problems for World of Warcraft AI. So what are the problems that we want to solve here? Well, first, we'd want to face off against foes that really had tactical ability usage. You'd want foes that would be able to get into a defensive formation sometimes. Maybe polymorph you, maybe sap your healer, and steal one of those Azerite nodes right out from under you. If you're approaching an enemy rogue that is already in combat with a boss, it'd be really cool if sometimes he blinded the boss and attacked you, sometimes he blinded you and attacked the boss, and sometimes he vanishes to reconvene with his allies and come back later. Secondly, it would be awesome if all 3 of these had an intrinsic sense of the map objectives, if they would understand where the powerful creatures were, the major risk-reward moments, where the big chunks of Azerite were. That provides really an extra tension that you want when the creature is also going after the really important things while you're going after it. The end result of both of these is AI that can make strategic decisions. They can decide whether or not they want to stick in combat or leave combat. You'll finally face off against an AI that every once in a while will polymorph you, mount up, and just leave because he's got better things to do. That's also one of the really fun parts about messing with this system is that you can create AI personalities. We could, for example, make an undead rogue named Sneaky Pete, who every once in a while, when he sees that you're getting in a little over your heads with one of those powerful creatures, might vanish, sprint over, sap your healer, and jump you. It'd be mean, but we could do it. And it would be unlike any creature that you've already seen in World of Warcraft. And why? Because ultimately, there's a huge amount of unpredictability there. We've programmed a creature that we are calling advanced NPCs that can play their way through a procedurally generated space intelligently and can go into various different modes of combat that aren't just run up and punch you in the face. One of the other things that islands allow us to do is to take you to a wide variety of different locations. You saw a tropical island earlier. That was our first island. And this is the second one we're showing off today. It's an abandoned Gilnean village. Well, almost abandoned. The walls of the city up on the hill have been closed tight for years. This is a two-part island where you'll be facing off against your foe in the lower portion and the abandoned lighthouse. And then halfway through the map, the gates to the abandoned city open up, and you get to see what happened to all of the denizens inside there. I won't spoil it for you, but it's generally spooky stuff. Going to the 1,000 islands of the Great Sea really gives us this awesome opportunity to take you to a wide variety of different visual locations. We put together a quick video showing the first two of our islands. We can't wait to get Island Expeditions into your hands. But at the same time, we realize that Sneaky Pete isn't for everybody. Some people are really going to enjoy facing off against really powerful AI that makes smart tactical decisions, and some people aren't. So we're happy to announce that we're planning on shipping this feature with 4 different difficulty settings. Normal, Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Sneaky Pete is really, he's good, he's rude, he's really rude. And PvP. We think that absolutely one of the most fun ways to play this particular piece of content is facing off against 3 other players and really hearkening back to that sense of racing off against another player towards a mineral node and getting it right before them and getting to laugh. We think you're going to love this piece of content. We talked a whole lot about how you're going to gain Azerite, or one of the main sources of it. Now here to talk to you about what you're going to do with it, Russell Peterson.
The war that seems to be brewing, the island expeditions are just the prelude to that. The planet will soon be consumed in all-out war. The discovery of Azerite and the arms race that it's kicked off has so completely consumed the attention of both factions, they've forgotten the victor of that war is likely to inherit a dying world. It's always been the mission of the Burning Legion to destroy Azeroth, and it seems that even in their defeat, they finally struck the killing blow. Only Magni seems to understand how desperate the situation has truly become. He's appealed to the leaders of both factions and has been turned away. He instead calls to you, the greatest heroes that Azeroth has ever seen, When you answer his summons, he'll entrust you with an ancient Titan artifact, the Heart of Azeroth. Magni believes that the Heart of Azeroth holds the key to undoing the worst of the damage inflicted by the Legion. You'll carry the Heart of Azeroth around your neck as you adventure on Kultiris and Zandalar. It's up to you to save the world. Again, a little bit more literally this time than in previous expansions. The Heart of Azeroth is the focal point of your character's progress throughout the expansion. When it comes in close proximity to Azerite, the Heart of Azeroth absorbs a fraction of its power. It grows stronger. It levels up. You'll gain Azerite from familiar activities like raids, dungeons, world quests, PvP, and new ones like island expeditions and warfronts. As the Heart of Azeroth gains in strength and levels up, it becomes stronger in its own right. It may gain unique new abilities, but most importantly, it gains the power to awaken latent abilities in other pieces of armor that you'll find. This is an in-development look at how you'll interact with an individual piece of Azerite armor. Each piece has 4 rings containing powers. Each of those rings unlocks at a different Heart of Azeroth level. The outer rings are relatively accessible. You might loot an item and discover you can pick 1 or 2 powers immediately, but the innermost powers will require you to further empower the Heart of Azeroth. Once the Heart of Azeroth has awakened a ring, you simply choose a power, and it becomes active on your character for as long as you wear that item. Now, you've seen items with powers on them before, but Azerite armor powers are in multitudes, and it's up to you to decide how they affect your character. This is an important distinction from what's come before. You might find a power that makes you think twice about using a talent that you'd previously written off. You might find a power on a helm that you'd previously seen on a shoulder while you were leveling up. And you will certainly find combinations that reinforce your favorite way to play your character. Now, you're going to be able to do this every time you find a new item. The key to all of that and the freedom of experimentation is that the Heart of Azeroth is the source of that power. Whenever you loot a new item and you awaken Azerite powers on it, your Heart of Azeroth doesn't change. Anytime you loot Azerite, you make your character stronger. If you try a new item on, you have no progression setback whatsoever. You will always be moving forward. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, this sounds like a lot of randomness. That's not true. Each of these items has a unique handcrafted layout, and it's the same every single time you see the item. You'll be able to open the dungeon journal and determine which powers affect your character the way that you prefer and know exactly what you need to do to acquire those items. And you'll always want to acquire the strongest version of the item. The strength of an individual Azerite power is derived from the item level of the item that it belongs to, which is a very carefully worded way of saying the Mythic Dungeon version is better than the Heroic Dungeon version. You're always going to want to have the most powerful version of the item possible. This is a little confusing to think about in the abstract, so let's walk through an example together. This is Sardina. Sardina is an orc shaman. She enjoys long walks on the beach, kungaloosh, transmog runs, and she raids with her guilds 2 nights a week. She mostly plays elemental, but every once in a while she'll switch to restoration to heal if somebody can't make the raid, or to do some mythic dungeons. She's going to help us walk through this example today, and she's really excited to be here. Sardina's Heart of Azeroth is currently level 20. Now, any of the numbers that I'm going to use here are hypothetical. Don't get mad at me when it's not like that when the game comes out. Level 20 is good enough to unlock the first 2 rings on her helm, the Coif of Entwined Fates. The 3rd ring requires level 21. It just so happened to be checking in with her during a dungeon run. She completes the dungeon, loots the Azerite off the boss, and immediately her neck levels up to 21. There's no items to click, it just happens. Doing that, it unlocks the 3rd ring on this item. Now, Sardina's been looking forward to this for a while. She knows the choice she's going to make. So she selects the power, and it immediately becomes active on her character. But why did she make that choice? Let's talk just a little bit about how we want the system to work. The most important part of this is that we want the choices that you're going to be presented with to make sense with one another. If I give you a choice between your lightning bolt does 20% more damage or you gain 20 fishing skill, I have a pretty good idea of which one of those you're going to choose. You were here this morning for Ian's talk. You know Queen Ashara is on her way, that fishing skill is going to be really important in the raid, and you're going to be prepared for it. No, you're going to take the lightning bolt damage. We want these choices to be something where you look at it and you say, yes, all of those things belong together, and my favorite one is this. But we want these to be about more than just raw power. We want them to be about how you express yourself as a character or as a player. And we want them to provide things that aren't just bigger, better, more. So the choice that Sardina made was between a power that affected Ghost Wolf and gave it an extra boost of speed after you're taking damage, or a power that affects Astral Shift and helps reduce the damage taken when the power is active. Sardina looks at this and she says, this is about standing in the fire. I can take the Ghost Wolf power and I can get out of the fire really quickly. Or I can take the Astral Shift power and maybe I don't have to get out of the fire at all. Those are decisions that, yes, there may be a specific correct answer for one situation, but that's also something that depends on you as a player. If you are not very good at noticing when you're in the fire, maybe you go with Astral Shift. But Sardina goes with Ghost Wolf because when she heals, there's nothing that drives her up the wall faster than DPS who stand in the fire, and she's not going to set a bad example. We hope that these kinds of choices will be present all throughout the expansion. One of the really exciting things about Azerite armor is that we get to introduce new powers later in the expansion that you've never seen before, and you have all new choices to make. And I hope that you choose to use these powers responsibly, in the way that Magni hopes that you do, to save Azeroth. But if you were here this morning and you saw that cinematic, and you heard the screams of the Banshee Queen, or saw the way Anduin rallied his troops, you probably want to know how you're going to be taking the fight to the other faction. And here to talk about Warfronts is Matt Goss.
Good job, bud.
All right, guys, let's go to war. So, you saw islands. Islands are telling the story of the skirmish that's going on between the Horde and the Alliance, between our two continents. Warfronts are telling the story of war on the homeland. So these are 20-player cooperative experiences, so you and 19 of your closest faction friends will take it to the other team. It's Alliance versus Horde, it's red versus blue, it's orc versus human. This is your time to stand with your faction and take down the other side. So we're really looking back to our Warcraft RTS fantasy roots with this system. But again, it's on the ground. You're fighting on the ground with your troops, building buildings with your character using your powers. So this picture of the original box of Warcraft 2, I think really symbolizes... That's weird. Did you guys see that? Can we enhance this? Wait, Battle for Azeroth is on this box? And no one noticed? Tides of Vengeance in this? Okay, anyway. Okay, so let's talk about Eastern Kingdoms. So what you saw in the cinematic, Undercity lies in ruins now. Okay, you're right, wait. More ruins. I guess it was already kind of messed up before, but definitely more ruins at this point. So this means that Alliance have control over Eastern Kingdoms. It is very close to falling to the full Alliance. The fight is going to end, the fight is going to continue, I should say, in Arathi Highlands, where the remaining members of the Horde will face off against the Alliance pushing north. All right, so for the Alliance, why is this important? Well, the Undercity isn't defensible. The Horde is still up to the north, and they're still angry. Silvermoon City is up there. It's a zone boundary away. There's like a loading screen, but they can probably make it through. Probably make sure. And this is a place you can make a stand and cut off the north. Now, for the Horde, you got to make a stand here. You've already lost your most defensible position. This is your time to prevent the Alliance from building up. It's also a great place to launch attacks on Gilneas if we were to do such a thing. So the first warfront that we're going to have in Battle for Azeroth is Stromgarde, the fight for Stromgarde. Okay, that's the original version of Stromgarde. That's the new version of Stromgarde. So we're still working on the map, so it'll probably change as we get through it all, but it's very cool. So Alliance, you're going to try to reclaim the original seat of Stromgarde and use it to defend yourself against the Horde. So the first thing you're going to do when you get to a warfront is you're going to establish your base. So for Alliance, you're going to build a town hall. For Horde, you're going to build a Great Hall. After that, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to start gathering resources, and you're going to start taking territory. Resources are very important to the game, just like they were in the original RTS. You got to collect lumber, you got to collect iron, and you got to put those together to build buildings. Territory is also very important because territory will unlock new buildings and new research and new available opportunities that you can take on the battlefield. All of that iron and lumber that you're building and a fantastic flannel progression system that you'll have for chopping down trees, you're going to build your base. So this is actually the original Warcraft 3 tech tree for Horde. We are trying to follow this as close as we can because we think it's awesome. So you're going to build a Great Hall. You're going to build a barracks, and from the barracks you're going to train troops. You can build an armory, which upgrades your troops. You can build a spirit lodge to build shaman. All of those things will be important for the fight. If you're Alliance, you're also going to build a barracks, but it will be riflemen and footmen and knights, just like the original RTS. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, cool, building bases with 19 other people sounds super fun. I'm sure we'll all decide the right buildings to choose, and it'll go fine. So the way this works is you actually get to gather your resources for yourself, and then you can contribute them to which building you want to build. Whenever that building has enough resources to build, peons will start running over and putting it together. So the choice is made by everyone. If you work together, you're going to build buildings faster, you're going to go through it, but nothing is lost. With those buildings, you now need to build your army. So each building that you build that builds units, like the barracks, you'll be able to build those grunts and footmen, and you'll send them to the front line. When you build them, they'll take off running to the front. But you should be there with them. You need to lead them into battle. You're going to the enemy gates, you're destroying their walls, you're killing their commander. That's what you need to do, and you need an army to do that. But again, you're not the only one here. The other side is also there. They also want to build an army, and they might have already built an army. They also want to take your gates down. They also want to crumble your walls and kill your commander. So not only are you taking territory and gathering resources, you're also defending. You need to defend the territory that you take. You need to defend your base, or else you'll lose. So each time you play through a warfront, we're trying to look at different systems to make it feel different. One of the ones we're really excited about is this concept of different enemy commanders. Again, going back to that original Warcraft fantasy. So imagine you have a human commander that you're fighting against as Horde. He might have upgraded knights and footmen that he sends all the time. Or you could have a dwarven commander who has upgraded riflemen and also has a special unit that no other commander has, a dwarven mortar team. You're also going to be able to research new war technology outside of the warfront so that you can bring it in the next time you play. And finally, we're actually having these battlefield events prop up while you're playing the game. So let's say one of your games, a goblin merchant shows up, and he offers to pay for some mercenaries to fight for your side. That is all we have to show for warfronts today. Moving to the next topic, social features. So when we looked at Battle for Azeroth, and we were trying to get to, we really found an opportunity with social features. Our goals were really pretty simple, I think. We really like the social structures that you guys have. We love guilds. We hope you guys love guilds too. But we found we could make it easier to communicate, make it easier to make connections and keep connections in the game. So your social structures that you might have right now, let's say that you have a guild. You have a raid group that may meet Wednesday nights. Maybe you do PvP during the week. You also, on the weekends, you do pre-made group finder for your raided battlegrounds and your Mythic Keystone dungeons. If all of these social structures take place in a guild, you're probably doing okay. Otherwise, you're probably looking at other apps or other ways to manage those connections and keep in contact. Specifically, if you're doing a lot of pre-made group finder, you might find it really frustrating to every single group you join, having to find the next app you need to download, figure out what server you want to connect to, just to talk to people in that group. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to integrate BattleNet voice into World of Warcraft. So this is the same voice that Overwatch uses, so it's the same quality and the same, should be the same easy to use. It also is integrated into our game, so rather than having to look at another app to figure out who's talking and correlate that name to the character names in the game, you'll just be able to see a little pop-up with their name and a little speaker icon. So if you're in a pre-made group, you'll get a little pop-up that says, hey, would you like to join the voice chat? You say yes, and you're in. For the other social structures that we have, we thought that Guild was cool, but we wanted to do a little bit more to support those features. So we're introducing WoW communities. So these are character-specific groups. They're cross-server, so you can keep in touch with your friends that are on different servers than you, and you can be in multiple communities at the same time, in addition to your guild. So the features that we have for communities, you get a roster of members, you get the people that are in the community. We have very simple role management, so you'll be able to have like a founder, an officer, and members of your guild, so you can manage who has control. This is all integrated into Quick Join. So when you see a community member join into a game, you can hop into their queue and join in without losing any time. These will also be integrated with voice, so you can be able to talk to your community just by clicking a button. We also are introducing auto-maintain calendar invites. So right now, you make a calendar invite and you might have to manually keep track of who's in it. With this, if your community is managing the calendar invite, once you make it, like let's say the Wednesday night raid, once you make that calendar invite, anyone who joins your community automatically gets that invite. Anybody who leaves your community automatically is removed. And we're also putting text chat history into the game. So let's say that you are playing, you have to go for an hour, and then you come back an hour later. You'll be able to see all of the history of every community that you were listening to or that you were talking to in chat and be able to catch up with the conversation right away. So you're probably thinking, those sound great. I wish I had those in the guild. So all the new things for guilds will actually be in Battle for Azeroth too. So voice integration, automating calendar invites, and text chat history will be part of your guild. So yeah, it's cool. So this is a sneak peek at what the UI could look like. This is a mock-up that we're working on. So you can see at the top, that's your guild. So this is a redo of the guild panel. You can see the chat that's going on inside. When you actually see the chat, you can also pipe the chat back into your normal chat frame. So /G will still be there. And you can take your communities and make it /1/2. You'll also see the rated BG team and the Friday raid group as communities that you have. And that last box, which is a little bit different, is actually Blizzard BattleNet groups. So a couple weeks ago, BattleNet groups went live, so you can make friends with all of your BattleTag buddies. So now you'll be able to see those in the WoW client as well. All right. That is all we have today. Thank you guys so much. We're really, really excited to get this expansion in your hands. I know you guys want to play too. So tomorrow here, we have Q&A at 4 o'clock. You can submit all of your questions at the Dark Moon Fair. Also, there's an art panel tomorrow at 12:45 on the Legendary stage. You should go check that out too. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great BlizzCon.